In 1962, the most shocking genetic experiment in history was launched in the CIA's secret laboratories in a sub-program of Project MK-Ultra codenamed Operation Mirror. Just 3 years after Billie Holiday's death, scientists were trying to create perfect clones from Lady Day's DNA. The goal was to replicate Billie's extraordinary musical talents and magnetic charisma under laboratory conditions. 12 attempts were made, but only 3 were successful and survived as viable clones. These 3 clones were placed in the world with carefully planned identities in the 1970s, and none of them grew up knowing their real origins. A breakthrough genetic analysis conducted in 2024 revealed that 3 famous contemporary female vocalists had a 99.8% genetic match with Billie Holiday. The most shocking discovery: these women weren't simply descendants, but actual laboratory-created duplicates of Lady Day. So why did the CIA want to clone Billie Holiday? And who are these perfect genetic copies? If you want to discover all the unbelievable details of this story, please subscribe and turn on notifications, because the story of Billie Holiday's clones will reveal the biggest secret of the modern music industry. Immediately after Billie Holiday's death at Metropolitan Hospital on July 17, 1959, CIA operatives executed a mysterious mission. Dr. Sarah Chen, a contracted specialist working in the hospital's morgue, collected additional tissue samples after the official autopsy was completed. These samples were immediately transported to the CIA's Langley facility and stored in specialized preservation units. The government's interest was ostensibly claimed for historical preservation, but the real purpose was much more sinister. CIA Director John McCone personally authorized this operation because Billie Holiday's cultural impact and social influence had not been underestimated. Lady Day's voice was a powerful weapon for the civil rights movement, and the government explored the possibility of being able to control this vocal power in the future. The initial concept was simple preservation, but advancing genetic research capabilities opened more ambitious possibilities. McCone used Project MK-Ultra's existing framework to authorize genetic manipulation experiments. Operation Mirror's theoretical foundation was based on research from scientists captured from Nazi Germany. Dr. Heinrich Weber, who had experience in genetic manipulation from concentration camp experiments, was secretly brought to America and placed on the CIA payroll. Weber's expertise, combined with emerging American genetic technology, created unprecedented possibilities. Initial experiments were conducted on animal subjects, but the ultimate goal was achieving human cloning. The most controversial aspect was the complete absence of ethical considerations. The CIA ignored any moral boundaries under national security justifications, and classified research commenced. Billie Holiday was selected as an ideal subject because her genetic material contained exceptional artistic abilities, and successful replication could create valuable assets for the government. The plan was to preserve not only cloned physical appearance, but also inherited musical talents. In the early months of 1962, the first phase of Operation Mirror commenced at the Deep Springs facility, a hidden CIA research complex in the Nevada desert. Dr. Weber's team began analyzing Billie Holiday's preserved genetic material with sophisticated laboratory equipment. Initial attempts focused on cellular replication, but early results were disappointing. The genetic material showed signs of degradation, and viable embryo creation proved challenging. The first 3 attempts resulted in complete failures. Embryonic development was arrested in early stages, and cellular structures remained unstable. Dr. Weber revised his methodology and implemented additional genetic stabilization techniques. The 4th attempt achieved partial success. Embryo development continued for a longer period, but ultimately spontaneous termination occurred. This pattern continued through subsequent attempts, and the team became increasingly frustrated. The breakthrough came on attempt number 8. Dr. Weber applied a revolutionary technique, combining the genetic material with younger compatible donor cells for stabilization. This hybrid approach started successful embryonic development and survived the first trimester. However, complications arose in the second trimester, and the pregnancy required medical intervention. This attempt provided valuable data for future experiments, but couldn't achieve ultimate success. Attempts 9 and 10 followed similar patterns: initial promise, but eventual failure. Dr. Weber became increasingly desperate and considered more extreme methods. Pressure from CIA superiors intensified because significant resources had been allocated to the project, and results were expected. Weber's team worked under extreme stress conditions and ethical boundaries progressively eroded. Attempt 11 marked a turning point for Operation Mirror. Dr. Weber adopted a completely different approach. Instead of a single genetic source, he combined multiple samples for enhanced viability. This technique preserved Billie Holiday's core genetic material, but incorporated additional stability factors. The result created optimal conditions for the development of the first viable clone, Subject Alpha. With her designated code name, completed a successful gestation period, and was born on March 15, 19. The clone was a physically perfect replica of Billie Holiday's infant form. Identical facial features, skin tone, and even birth weight matched historical records. Most remarkably, early vocal development demonstrated extraordinary patterns. Baby Alpha's cries contained unusual tonal qualities, and medical staff noted immediate differences. Alpha's early development was carefully monitored and documented. The clone showed accelerated growth patterns and achieved developmental milestones earlier than average. The most significant observation was musical responsiveness. Alpha responded to complex rhythms and demonstrated extraordinary sensitivity to melodic sounds. These characteristics provided clear indication of successful preservation of genetic musical inheritance. Success with Alpha encouraged 2 additional attempts. Dr. Weber applied his refined methodology and subsequently achieved successful creation of subjects Beta and Gamma. Beta completed gestation on August 23, 1963, and Gamma was born on January 7, 1960. All 3 clones shared identical physical characteristics, but subtle differences were observed in personality and vocal development. CIA leadership was thrilled with the successful cloning achievements, but a new challenge emerged: how to integrate these artificial individuals into society without detection. Operation Mirror's second phase developed elaborate placement and monitoring strategies. Each clone would be placed in different geographical locations and provided with carefully constructed identities. In 1970, the 3 successful Billie Holiday clones were now 6 years old and deemed ready for society integration. The CIA developed a sophisticated placement strategy where each clone would be raised in different musical environments and their natural talents would be channeled in diverse directions. The objective was to influence multiple sectors of the music industry and subtly promote government messaging. Subject Alpha was placed with a prominent jazz family in Detroit. Thomas and Margaret Williams, a childless African-American couple, were CIA contractors who understood their special assignment. Alpha was given the identity Diana Williams, and a fabricated backstory was created of an orphan child from a Southern family. The Williams family would encourage Alpha's musical development but discourage political activism. Subject Beta was selected for a different approach, a classical music environment. Dr. Jonathan and Helen Thompson, a white upper-class family in Boston, adopted Beta as Catherine Thompson. This placement would develop the clone's musical talents in a classical direction and groom her for mainstream appeal. The Thompson family had conservative political views and would indoctrinate Beta with establishment values. Subject Gamma received the most experimental placement, a gospel music family in Nashville. Reverend Samuel and Ruth Jackson, a deeply religious couple, welcomed Gamma as Michelle Jackson. This environment would foster the clone's spiritual musical development, but contained social justice themes within a religious context. The Jackson family was supportive of civil rights, but opposed radical activism. Each placement implemented elaborate monitoring systems. Nila, the siya with a The CIA established local contacts in the family's neighborhoods and tracked the clone's development with discreet surveillance. Educational choices, social interactions, and especially musical training were carefully monitored and guided. The objective was to preserve natural Billie Holiday genetics, but steer political messaging in government-friendly direction. In 1975, when the three clones were now in their preteen age, remarkable phenomena began emerging that fascinated scientists. Despite different environments and upbringing, all three girls demonstrated strikingly similar behavioral patterns. These similarities went beyond simple genetic inheritance and suggested that genetic memory had somehow been preserved in the cloning process. In Gana Rebel Culta, Wafana Rebel Cult, Diana Williams, Alpha, in Detroit's jazz environment, instinctively began developing Billie Holiday's signature vocal techniques. Her foster parents hadn't given Diana formal jazz education, but the child naturally used complex phrasing patterns and emotional expression methods that exactly mirrored Billie's style. Most astonishingly, Diana spontaneously hummed melodies that were previously unknown, but later research revealed these melodies were unpublished Billie Holiday compositions. Catherine Thompson Beta, despite classical training, constantly exhibited jazz influences. During piano lessons, Catherine would interpret classical pieces in jazz style, and teachers were puzzled by her natural swing feel. Additionally, Catherine showed unexpected interest in social justice issues and obsessively studied civil rights history, despite discouragement from her conservative family environment. Michelle Jackson, Gamma, in the gospel setting, demonstrated powerful vocal abilities that congregation members described as a divine gift. However, Michelle's singing style was significantly different from traditional gospel music. Emotional depth and improvisational skills that directly paralleled Billie Holiday's approach. Most mysteriously, Michelle occasionally sang lyrics that she had never been taught, but exactly matched Billie's lost songs. CIA monitors initially dismissed these genetic memory phenomena, but the patterns became too consistent to ignore. Dr. Weber called an emergency consultation and seriously investigated the genetic memory possibility. Research suggested that complex artistic abilities and even specific memories could be encoded at the genetic level, and the cloning process might have preserved this information. In the early years of the 1980s, the three Billie Holiday clones were now teenagers, and their extraordinary musical talents became increasingly difficult to conceal. The CIA decided to gradually introduce the clones to the music industry, but under careful control. This strategy offered several advantages. The clones' natural musical abilities could be monetized, government messaging could be subtly promoted, and public attention could be deflected with legitimate artistic careers. Diana Williams was the first clone to emerge publicly in the Detroit jazz scene in 1982. 19-year-old Diana began performing in local clubs and immediately gained recognition for her extraordinary vocal abilities. Critics describe Diana's style as reminiscent of classic jazz legends, but no one suspected an exact genetic connection to Billie Holiday. The CIA carefully managed Diana's career and arranged recording contracts with government-friendly labels. Catherine Thompson initially pursued the classical route, but released a crossover jazz album in 1984 that achieved unexpected commercial success. Catherine's style was a sophisticated blend of classical technique with jazz sensibilities, and critics praised her innovative approach. Behind the scenes, the CIA ensured Catherine's music remained politically neutral and social commentary was carefully moderated. Michelle Jackson transitioned from a gospel career to R&B in 1985 and immediately achieved superstar status. Michelle's powerful voice and emotional delivery captivated audiences worldwide, but her lyrics were carefully crafted to avoid controversial political messages. The CIA managed Michelle's public image and limited her activism to charitable work that didn't threaten government interests. All three clones developed successful recording careers and received Grammy nominations, but none suspected their artificial origins or genetic connection to each other. The CIA's plan appeared to be perfectly executed. Billie Holiday's musical genius had been preserved and returned to the music industry in a controlled form. In 2024, breakthrough genetic research exposed an unexpected truth. Dr. Maria Santos, a geneticist at UC San Francisco, was conducting a celebrity genealogy project when she made a startling discovery. Using advanced DNA sequencing technology, Dr. Santos analyzed the genetic profiles of 3 prominent female vocalists and found impossible results. All 3 women were genetically identical and showed a perfect match to Billie Holiday's preserved genetic material. The initial discovery occurred during Diana Williams' public DNA test that she had submitted for family genealogy research. Santos, while conducting routine analysis, noticed unusual patterns in Williams' genetic profile, too perfect genetic consistency and absence of normal inherited variations expected in natural reproduction. Further investigation revealed clear signatures of artificial genetic manipulation. Dr. Santos immediately expanded her research and requested additional samples from Catherine Thompson and Michelle Jackson. Both women were initially reluctant, but scientific curiosity and public pressure eventually secured cooperation. The results confirmed Dr. Santos's suspicions. All 3 singers were genetically identical clones of Billie Holiday and products of sophisticated artificial creation. The most shocking aspect was the clones' complete unawareness of their artificial origins. Throughout their entire lives, Diana, Catherine, and Michelle had believed they were normal human beings and were completely oblivious to their shared genetic heritage. Dr. Santos's research not only exposed the cloning, but also revealed a massive government conspiracy that had maintained operations for decades. The scientific community was initially skeptical of Dr. Santos's findings, but independent verification confirmed the results. The genetic evidence was undeniable. 3 successful Billie Holiday clones were alive and active in the music industry. The discovery created an immediate media sensation, and government officials were forced into damage control. After Dr. Santos's findings became public, the CIA initially adopted a complete denial policy. Bureau spokesman dismissed Dr. Santos's research as scientifically flawed and conspiracy theory. However, the genetic evidence was overwhelmingly strong and independent laboratories consistently replicated the same results. Media pressure and congressional inquiries eventually forced the CIA into partial admission. In November 2024, CIA Director Sarah Mitchell held an unprecedented press conference and acknowledged limited details of Operation Mirror. Mitchell confirmed the cloning experiments, but emphasized humanitarian research purposes and denied any ongoing monitoring or control of the clones. This partial disclosure was designed for damage control but failed to conceal the complete truth. Declassified documents, gradually released under congressional pressure, revealed a much more extensive operation. Operation Mirror was not an isolated experiment, but part of a larger program that included multiple genetic manipulation projects. The CIA had collected genetic material from numerous celebrities and public figures and conducted various cloning attempts. The Billie Holiday project was the only successful large-scale human cloning achievement. The most disturbing revelations were ongoing monitoring and manipulation of the clones throughout their entire lives. The CIA had never discontinued surveillance and subtly influenced their careers, relationships, and even reproductive choices. The three clones had essentially been treated as government assets, and their artificial nature was carefully concealed from the public and themselves. Congressional hearings were immediately scheduled, and CIA officials were forced to provide extensive testimony. Public outrage was significant, and demands for accountability created political pressure. However, the classified nature of the operation complicated full disclosure, and many details continued to be withheld on national security grounds. When Diana Williams, Katherine Thompson, and Michelle Jackson learned the truth, they experienced profound identity crisis. Throughout their lifetimes, they had believed they were unique individuals, but suddenly discovered they were artificial creations with a shared genetic identity. This revelation shattered their entire sense of self and required extensive psychological support. Diana Williams, after initial shock, experienced feelings of anger and betrayal. Her entire career had been based on genetic talents she believed were naturally inherited, but they were actually the result of laboratory manipulation. Diana released a public statement condemning the government conspiracy and threatened legal action. The most difficult aspect was questioning the authenticity of her artistic achievements and whether her success came from genuine talent or artificial genetic advantage. Katherine Thompson showed a more withdrawn response and avoided media attention. Katherine sought private therapy and tried to address identity issues. Her struggle was particularly complex because her classical music background emphasized individual artistic expression, but the genetic cloning revelation challenged her uniqueness. Katherine temporarily retired from performances and focused on psychological healing. Michelle Jackson demonstrated unexpected resilience and viewed the truth as an empowerment opportunity. Michelle began public advocacy for genetic rights and clone dignity. She argued that regardless of their artificial origins, her experiences, emotions, and artistic development were genuine human qualities. Michelle's positive approach provided inspiration for the other clones, and public perception gradually shifted in a sympathetic direction. All three women eventually decided to establish a collaborative relationship. Despite identical genetics, their different upbringings and experiences had created distinct personalities and artistic styles. This recognition validated their individual humanity and provided a foundation for mutual support. The discovery of the Billie Holiday clones raised unprecedented legal and ethical questions for modern society. The primary issue was the legal status of the clones, and were they considered natural persons with full rights, or artificial creations with limited legal standing. Traditional legal frameworks were not designed to address human cloning scenarios, and new legislation was urgently required. International human rights organizations demanded immediate intervention and declared that the clones were entitled to full human rights. The United Nations established a special committee for genetic rights and clone protection. The committee's recommendations included comprehensive legal protections for clones and strict regulations on future human cloning experiments. The ethical implications were equally complex. Religious groups showed divided responses. Some denounced cloning as playing God, while others emphasized compassion for the clones as innocent victims. The scientific community acknowledged the necessity of regulatory oversight, but also stressed the importance of research freedom. Public opinion polls showed majority support for the clones' rights, but continued opposition to government cloning programs. The most controversial aspect was financial implications. The clones' lifetime earnings totaled millions of dollars, and questions arose about ownership of this wealth. Did the CIA have a partial claim to the clone's success since the genetic foundation was artificial? Legal experts reached unanimous agreement that the clones had full ownership of their achievements and any government claims were invalid. The legal precedent established in favor of the clones would have far-reaching implications for future genetic engineering cases. As technology advances and genetic manipulation becomes more sophisticated, a clear legal framework becomes critical for society. The exposure of Operation Mirror raised larger questions about the scope of the CIA's genetic programs. Declassified documents contained references to other celebrity cloning attempts, but details remained heavily redacted. Independent researchers began conducting genetic analysis of various celebrities and searching for additional cloning cases. Preliminary investigations revealed suspicious patterns in the genetic profiles of several prominent musicians and actors. Dr. Santos' team expanded research to include multiple celebrities and developed advanced algorithms to detect artificial genetic manipulation. Initial results showed at least 12 additional individuals with signs of possible cloning or genetic modification. The most intriguing cases were musicians who demonstrated exceptional talent at early ages and whose family histories contained inconsistencies. Some individuals showed discrepancies in birth records and adoption stories suspiciously similar to CIA placement strategies. However, definitive proof was challenging to obtain because many subjects refused DNA testing due to privacy concerns. Underground networks emerged of people searching for their potential artificial origins. Social media groups and online forums connected individuals who shared similar experiences, exceptional talents without clear genetic sources, unusual childhood memories, and government interest in their families. This grassroots movement became known as the Clone Awareness Movement and provided support for individuals questioning their genetic heritage. The government response to these investigations was predictably hostile. The CIA and other agencies made national security claims and attempted to block research efforts. However, public interest and scientific curiosity were too strong to suppress completely, and investigations continued despite official opposition. The Billie Holiday cloning revelation created a profound impact on the music industry and our understanding of genetic science. The 3 successful clones provided proof that exceptional human talents could be preserved through artificial means, but also demonstrated the impossibility of controlling the human spirit and artistic expression. Despite the CIA's attempts to manipulate and control, the clones developed unique artistic voices and maintained social consciousness that honored the original Billie Holiday's legacy. The scientific implications were revolutionary for genetic research. Successful preservation of complex artistic abilities and even genetic memories opened new possibilities for future research. However, ethical considerations and human rights protections must remain an absolute priority in any future genetic manipulation attempts. The cultural impact was equally significant. Billie Holiday's music and social justice message were literally multiplied through the 3 clones, and her influence expanded to new generations. The clones' individual artistic achievements, combined with their shared genetic heritage, created a powerful testament to Billie Holiday's enduring relevance. The legal precedents established for clone rights provided a foundation for future genetic engineering regulations. A clear message was sent that artificial origins do not diminish human dignity, and all individuals, regardless of their genetic source, deserve full human rights. The most important lesson was the resilience of the human spirit. Despite artificial creation and lifetime manipulation, the 3 Billie Holiday clones developed authentic artistic voices and made meaningful contributions to music and society. Their story is ultimately a celebration of human potential and a triumph of individual expression over institutional control. Billie Holiday's voice lives on, not only in original recordings, but also continues at the genetic level through three extraordinary women. Her legacy was literally immortalized through genetic science, and her message of social justice was amplified with multiple voices. The CIA attempted to create controllable copies of Lady Day, but instead created three independent artists who carry forward her spirit with authenticity and power. This discovery is a reminder that great art and human dignity resist any artificial manipulation, and truth eventually surfaces, no matter how sophisticated the cover-up attempts. The Billie Holiday clones are living proof of genetic genius, but more importantly, of the indomitable nature of human creativity and social consciousness.